least 16 more balloons have flown into Poland, according to a report by the Niezależna portal this morning. The report was confirmed by the Podlasie Border Guard unit. We received information that there were balloons in the air, which is why we published the article. Shortly after 12 p.m., the Border Guard headquarters denied this information. In connection with the false information appearing in some media outlets regarding the crossing of the border zone on the night of January 17th into January 18th by objects smuggling balloons from the territory of Belarus, we strongly deny this fake news. On Sunday, no objects crossed the Polish border. Such an incident took place on the night of Friday to Saturday, which we reported accurately. The border guard and the police are monitoring the situation at the border on an ongoing basis and remain in constant direct contact with the operational command of the armed forces. Please do not spread false information. After another article, I saw that there was a denial. First of all, the denial concerned a question about the night, which I did not ask about. I asked about Sunday, about today. It was a big surprise, a lot of confusion, an attempt to clarify what information the state is confirming. This is important because the Niezależna portal published the article after confirming the information with the source. We have obtained confirmation that this situation has occurred, with the additional information that they are still in the air and are being monitored by the military. Upon recontacting the Podlasie Border Guard unit, it turned out this time that the military is responsible for the airspace, and the Border Guard cannot confirm or deny our findings. Something must have been happening in Polish airspace or right next to the Polish border. This map shows that on Saturday evening, planes were avoiding eastern Poland. Later, very unofficially, it was discovered that the balloons were indeed near the Polish border. Weather conditions may have prevented the balloons from landing in Poland, causing them to turn back at the border or move in a different direction. The balloons themselves are simply powered by the wind and wind strength. If any of these parameters changed radically, and no one was able to predict it in advance, the balloons would return to Belarus and perhaps turn back at any point just before the border. Violations of Polish airspace are a recurring problem. According to our information, over 50 balloons flew into Poland on Friday night. The police did not disclose the actual scale of the violation. The message is that 2 balloons carrying cigarettes without Polish excise stamps were discovered. The situation is being fully monitored by the Border Guard and the police. The objects that violated the airspace are smuggling balloons. The services are securing the remains of the balloons, along with illegal packages of cigarettes without excise stamps, after the approximate location was indicated by the Armed Forces Operational Command. All actions taken at the border are part of an integrated state protection system. The police and Border Guard remain in constant direct contact with the Armed Forces Operational Command. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk is silent on this issue. We have a 418-kilometer border with Belarus, a border that, as it turns out, is like a sieve. The Prime Minister is solely focused on attacking the President. Ministers responsible for security act as chaperones for the heads of the services who come to meet with the President. The scale of these balloons, meaning 50, indicates that these actions were coordinated, and I cannot really consider it a mechanism that was carried out by smugglers, because usually someone has to control the shipment and control the delivery. For experts, the matter is clear. Talk of smuggling balloons is propaganda. These are not balloons, they are decision markers. Russia already knows the response times. Russia knows the lines of responsibility. It is testing the psychological resilience of society, the elites, and our entire political system. Attempts to manipulate public opinion, persuading people, suggesting that, for example, these are smuggling balloons and therefore cannot be part of hybrid warfare, are either a clear sign of the incompetence of the Polish services or a deliberate attempt by the government to mislead the Polish public. Information chaos and lack of government response. This is what the Russian and Belarusian regimes want. General Dariusz Wroński has prepared an operational assessment of Russia's actions. According to him, technical reconnaissance, procedural electoral reconnaissance, that is, who makes decisions and how quickly, and testing different times of day and night for airstrikes are already behind us. The Kremlin is increasingly violating our security. The third phase, which is still ongoing, is a test of decision-making and narrative resilience, where the goal is to check whether the state will maintain a consistent message, not panic, and not escalate at the opponent's request. Now Russia has entered a phase of getting us used to drones and balloons flying into our country and reducing the response of the Polish services. It is scandalous that yesterday one of the balloons landed in the center of Białystok, in a parking lot between the buildings of the regional prosecutor's office and the illegally seized Polish television, which is in liquidation. Even if it landed right in front of Donald Tusk, first of all, he would not react. Secondly, he is unable to react. And thirdly, neither Donald Tusk nor Minister Kierwiński nor the entire government in general want to react. The government has already raised the white flag on this issue. The white flag exposes Polish citizens to the threat from Russia. Mothers crying over the bodies of their children. This is everyday life in Iran after the outbreak of protests against the regime. Iranians want freedom and an improvement in the economic situation, which is getting worse by the day. The brutal suppression of the protests has claimed thousands of victims. According to the Iranian authorities, 5,000. However, unofficial reports from doctors speak of 16,500 fatalities and 330,000 injured. The authorities of the Islamic Republic of Iran blame the United States. The President of the United States is guilty of the deaths and defamation of the Iranian people. The Americans planned this. Their goal is to swallow Iran. Donald Trump has repeatedly announced military intervention if the Iranian authorities continue to kill protesters. And although he has temporarily suspended his plans,
you had yesterday scheduled over 800 hangings. They didn't hang anyone. They canceled the hangings. That had a big impact.
The use of force against the regime is still an option on the table.
President Donald J. Trump and the United States of America stands by the brave people of Iran. Period. And regardless of its excuses, and you will hear many today from the Iranian regime and from its friends, the regime is solely responsible for the economic misery of the Iranian people and the repression.
The UN urges peaceful solutions.
We note with alarm
the Secretary General remains convinced that all concerns regarding Iran, including those related to the nuclear issue and the ongoing protests, are best addressed through diplomacy and dialogue. Diplomacy may not be enough in this case. The United States is preparing for every possibility and increasing its forces in the Middle East. The Air Force has been joined by M1 Abrams tanks and M2A3 Bradley infantry fighting vehicles, which form the core of American armored formations. More American strike forces are expected to arrive in the region in the near future. According to the American military website The War Zone, if Trump decides to strike, it could target the killers of protesters, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei himself, and even nuclear facilities.
The president and his team have communicated to the Iranian regime that if the killing continues, there will be grave consequences. And the president received a message, as he revealed to all of you and the whole world yesterday, that the killing and the executions will stop. And the president understands today that 800 executions that were scheduled and supposed to take place yesterday were halted.
The government in Tehran plans to permanently shut down internet access. The authorities have temporarily relaxed the telecommunications blockade. Citizens can send text messages, but only within the country, thanks to protests by the Iranian diaspora in front of the country's embassies in many European cities, among others in Madrid, Paris, Rome, and London.
We are devastated, we are heartbroken, because we haven't heard from our family in Iran for like a week now. We don't know what's going on, if they're alive or not.
Among other things, the protesters are demanding that Reza Pahlavi, the son of the last Shah of Iran, who was removed from power as a result of the Iranian Islamic Revolution, take power in Iran.
We fully support Shahzadeh Pahlavi, but at the moment we have a very brutal government killing people. We need help from outside world. We are demanding President Trump to help us because at the moment Iranian, they are barehanded, they have no weapons and they are getting killed.
The so-called Islamic Republic is not the government of Iran. It is a hostile occupying force that's hijacked our homeland. After invading 5 neighboring countries and sowing chaos across the region, this regime has invaded Iran itself, using foreign terrorists, Hezbollah fighters, Iraqi militias, and other mercenaries to slaughter the Iranian people.
The question is whether and when the regime in Iran will be overthrown. A new chapter in the dispute over Greenland and a new chapter in the trade war between the United States and Europe. Starting on February 1st, 2026, all of the above-mentioned countries, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, France, Germany, the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, and Finland, will be charged a 10% tariff on any and all goods sent to the United States of America. On June 1st, 2026, the tariff will be increased to 25%. European countries want to prepare a joint response in the coming days, and today, a meeting of EU ambassadors was held behind closed doors in Brussels to discuss the matter. Allies should not treat each other this way, and that is why I consider this to be blackmail. We have until February 1st to truly present a united front. Greenland and Denmark are not up for discussion. Germany, France, and the Netherlands, the EU's largest exporters to the US, could lose the most from the new tariffs. The US is the main market for goods from the European Union: vehicles, industrial machinery, and pharmaceuticals. President Trump also has a lot to lose in this escalation of tariffs, as do his farmers and manufacturers. Less than 2 weeks ago, the Polish Prime Minister criticized the United States and tried to scare them with the collapse of NATO. Tusk has now fallen silent. Italy, like Poland, is not on the list of countries subject to new tariffs mentioned by President Trump, but Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni has taken a clear position on the issue, trying to defuse the dispute and speaking of misinterpretation on both sides of the Atlantic. I believe that imposing new sanctions today is a mistake. It is necessary to resume dialogue on this issue and avoid escalation, and that is what I am working on. I spoke with Donald Trump a few hours ago and told him what I think. Although the Americans are clear about their expectations, they want to talk and persuade their European partners.
I don't foresee military intervention in Greenland. It's a small population of people, and I think diplomatic channels is the way to go, and I think the president's appointment of an envoy.
Even Donald Trump's political opponents in the United States, while criticizing him for the tone and pace of the debate on Greenland, share his view of the island's strategic importance to U.S. security.
As the climate changes, as the sea ice retreats, as shipping routes change, there are legitimate reasons for us to explore ways to invest better in Arctic security broadly, both in the American Arctic and in our NATO partners and allies.
The Danish themselves recognize the threat from Russia.
The way that we see the world is that when the war in Ukraine is over, hopefully with a good result for Ukraine, we expect that Russia will move some of the capabilities and the resources into other theaters. It could be the Baltic Sea region, it could be the North Sea, it could be the Arctic. In order to be ready for that, we simply have to step up and we have to train that.
American interest in Greenland is a result of intensifying global competition with China and Russia, which are also increasing their military activity there.
The new domain of international competition is going to be polar competition. That is where more and more resources are being spent by our nation's adversaries and rivals, is the ability to control movement, navigation, lanes of travel in the polar and Arctic regions. Greenland is 25% larger than Alaska. Greenland is the size of 1/4 of the continental United States. With respect to Denmark, Denmark is a tiny country with a tiny economy and a tiny military. They cannot defend Greenland. They cannot control the territory of Greenland.
Greenland is the largest island in the world that is not a continent, still mostly covered by ice, with a population of only 56,000. It is an autonomous part of Denmark, although some of its inhabitants have been demanding full independence for years.